Initially, when I kind of hear the word assessment, I kind of get a bit daunted. It is a daunting kind of word.
When I hear the word assessment, all I think about is the pressure and the studying and the chance that I could fail it and not end up getting into the next year, and it's just scary.
I really kind of look forward to them because they give me a chance to test my knowledge and see how well or am I doing as well as I think I am doing.
I suppose it's a little bit anxious. You're kind of, oh God, but at the same time, I feel it's really important. Because I feel like if there wasn't an assessment, it'd be feel like there's no point in doing something.
Well, when I hear the word assessment, I would kind of put it with checking up on work that you've done all year, checking that you're doing the work at home and that you're listening in class and just seeing that everything is going in. And I suppose it's also to learn about how students learn and how they learn best and, you know, what comes out of it at the end. And if they're getting on okay, then you can stick with the same methods, and if they need to change it up for the teacher.
Yeah, I think it's to show your weaknesses and to show where you need to work on yourself and to show students that not everyone's at the same level, and it shows the teacher that as well, so they can know which students they need to work on specifically.
It's a scary word, but it's necessary. It prepares you for the workplace, I guess.
It's study, it's pressure, it's a nightmare.
When it's, you know, a continuous assessment or like a paper that we have to hand in and that's graded, that's brilliant because you have your chance that you can actually work hard and get it in and do your best and really make sure you hand in something very good quality. Whereas an exam, you're trying to remember everything, you know, trying to cram all the information into your mind, and it doesn't always work out so well.
The assessment I learned the most from was probably continual assessment because it keeps you on your toes all the time and you really got to put the work in if you want to do well. Whereas with end of year exams you can just grind, you can just study for maybe the day before and you'll do pretty well no matter what kind of exam it is, but with continual assessment you always have to put the work in.
Probably going back to what I spoke about earlier, the assessment, the business plan in further education, I think that really set me up to learn as much as I possibly could about real life scenarios. So for me, the business plan, it was very current. I had to look at the market, I had to do surveys, you know, I had to get people involved, I had to talk to business owners about it. I learned so much from that about even the Enterprise Board of Ireland and different government bodies that, you know, that you need to go to set these things up, these real life businesses. So that for me was one of the biggest assessments that I learned from.
Well, an assessment that I think I learned the most from was one of our lecturers gave us an assignment based on managing weight in an animal. And because I'm doing veterinary nursing, this is something that I'll have to deal with a lot with clients. It was very, very helpful to be able to do that now, so that we learned everything, learned the basics.
The purpose of assessment is ultimately to kind of see if you're keeping up with the material that the lecturer is covering. I suppose it's a good indicator of how well you will or won't do in your end of year's exams.
I think the purpose of assessment is so that the lecturers can see where we're at in our course and see what we know and what we don't know, and it's kind of a basis for them to judge us on nearly.
I think assessment is relevant sometimes, but not always, because the situations you're presented with in projects in class are not always going to be the situations you're going to have to deal with. You could have been given the wrong job for one of the assessments. You could fail it.
It gives you a big confidence boost if you do well in the assessment. Obviously it kind of brings you down to earth if you don't do so well.
I think the purpose of assessment is to get a good judgment of, are you actually learning what you're learning in time? Because it's like the real world. Like if you have a job, you don't have to hand up all your work at the end of the year.
I think the purpose of assessment, obviously, you know, you're going to college, you go to learn something. What are you going to learn? They need to somehow quantify what you have and have not learnt at the end of a period of time. With us, again, it's not maths. I think it's quite difficult. They're trying to teach us how to research, how to push the boundaries of how we think. How they assess that is kind of beyond me, really. I don't always understand.
With assessment, especially in my course, you can get your personality into your work. It's not just your views as such.
I suppose in college the idea of giving you an assessment is to show you not everything can be prepared for necessarily. You can prepare for it in certain ways, but there's going to be an element of surprise somewhere.
The assessments that I learned the least from were probably MCQs, because a lot of the time you can just guess the answer, because usually there's one or two answers that there's not a hope in hell it is, and the other one or the other two there's always like a 50% chance you're going to get it right.
When you're given assignments, obviously not everything is going to suit everybody all of the time. I know myself, we did in second year some video work. I am not a video person. And you know, so I found that really challenging, that I had to meet these criteria. You know, I had to make a video such and such a length. It had to be about a particular subject. Really, it was so challenging because it's not a medium I like to work in. You know, if you'd given me clay or something, I would have been much happier.
The type of assessment I learned the least from would be probably a theory exam in maybe a theoretical subject like physics or maths, where I don't really see the real world application for it.
I've never failed an assessment, but definitely I have gotten marks in assessments that I thought I could have done better in, and I think time management would have been something I should have improved on.
I did fail one test when I was in secondary school in biology, which was one of my favourite subjects, and I was completely disheartened because I had never failed anything before, and it just gave me the kick I needed to motivate myself to do something.
No, I haven't ever co-designed an assessment with a module. However, I think it would be a very, very good opportunity for lecturers and students to engage a little bit more. I think it would be a good indicator to, you know, give a better understanding to material that's going on in the class.
I would love to be involved in developing an assessment, and I think a lot of my peers as well have very good ideas, and we know what is what has been a good exam and what we feel has worked and what hasn't.
So we never actually co-designed a paper or an assessment specifically, but we were asked if we would prefer a written paper for Christmas, or would we like to hand in an assignment instead. And the class chose an assignment because we had so many other exams, and it was very helpful then because, you know, it was one less for us to worry about, but we were still obviously putting in the work as well, but you could do it more over time as opposed to being stressed out about it the night before.
In junior cert we did a project in science and biology which had to do with the growth of plants, and we worked in groups of 3s and 4s, and I think it was really beneficial for me towards the junior cert because it took a lot out of the science exam at the end of the year. There was a lot of it done, but I think I also learned a lot from the people I was in the group with. And I think the other people in the group also benefited, like the ones that were slacking learned how to hold their peace, and the ones that were doing too much learned how to, you know, pull back the reins a bit and let everyone have their share.
I've never entirely co-designed an assessment, but during the year we had to do an experiment, and we had to do the write-up in such a way that if any other person, particularly someone in first year, had to do the exact same experiment, they just could pick up our experiment, put it in front of them, and they could follow the steps and document their results. So we had to do that, which I enjoyed. That was fun.
If I was to give any advice to my lecturers to do assessments a little bit better, I would first of all initially make sure that the student has a good understanding of what's to be expected, what the assignment is all about. The second thing I would do is I'd like maybe that the student was to prepare all in good time, not leave it to the last minute. And the third thing I would do is to not fret. It's not as daunting as you feel, and when you think about it, it does actually help you in the long run. There isn't as much pressure.
The best piece of advice I would give a lecturer for preparing for an assessment maybe is let the students know what's going to come up, so they don't have to study everything that they've known, maybe just the topics that they know are going to come up, because the thing about continual assessments is you don't know what's going to come up most of the time, whereas at the end of your exam you can go back and look at past papers, and you don't have that with the continual assessment.
As a first year student, I think it would be very useful for a lecturer to understand that because we're coming from third level, most of us, from Leaving Cert, most of us, that it's a big adjustment to go from working on our own to working in a group. I think maybe at the start it's better to take it a bit slower, but then again not too slow, you know, so we have expectations that we have to work but not throw us into the deep end so we drown before we even start. Other than that, just be there to listen, I suppose, for any questions that we might have.